Hello, BookTube. A gentle rain is falling on this first day of September. I think it's going to be raining for the rest of the day and for the rest of the night and probably tomorrow. And I've got a bunch of stuff to show you and share and talk about. Some mail, some reading, and also rereading. Yesterday, I went to visit an old friend who had boxes and boxes and boxes of books that he wanted to know if I wanted anything from them because he's going to get rid of them. He doesn't have a charity sale these days anymore, so he's just going to repurpose them somehow or other. And I grabbed whatever I could. I wasn't paying for them, and I also wasn't lugging them. I had a young friend who was carrying them for me, so I was able to grab everything. One of the heaviest things that I got was this. A beautiful hardcover edition of Vikram Chandra's epic novel, Sacred Games. Which I read. I think this came out in the mid-2000s. I read it and loved it. Absolutely loved it. In fact, I read it. We got an advance copy at the bookstore where I was working that broke it up into, I think, 6 little books. That advance copy, usually these days, publishers don't do a whole lot of inventiveness with their review copies. And that one did. Those 6 little booklets of the ARC came in, I think, a box of their own with fake bullet holes and that sort of thing. I imagine that ARC would probably be valuable. I read it then. I read it in that format and brought it back to the break room because I knew right away that I wanted the book. I didn't want a gimmick. I wanted the book itself, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It is on one level the story of the parallel lives and antagonisms, and even kind of sort of friendships between a Sikh policeman in Bombay and a gangster. But there, as you can tell from the size of the thing, the story exfoliates out from there in all directions just wonderfully, just wonderfully. And I found this yesterday, a nice hardcover, and with the deckled edges and everything. And last night, when I was putting away everything, I was closing up shop and getting ready to read all night long. When I do that, I sort of finalize my reading plans for the night. Things go in and out of my head the whole course of the day. Some things become imperative in the course of the day. Some things get discarded in the course of the day. And I decided that I would not only reread this book, but that I would reread it in a certain way. A while ago on this channel, I showed you a Canadian trade paperback of Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall. I just loved the physical form of it. It had the deckled edges and the French flaps. It had a very twisty, loose spine. Just wonderful. I decided that as many times as I've read Wolf Hall, I decided I would read it again, only very slowly, savoringly, with a pencil in hand, for any kind of attention that I want to give to it, which is not usually the way I read. Usually I am so aware of the clock that is ticking in the background of everything we do that I usually blast through books. And I decided I'm going to read this book, and since it was free, so a part of my mind is telling me I don't have to care what shape I keep this thing in. So I'm going to do that with this book. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it very slowly over the course of however long it takes. I'm going to savor it. So I started doing that last night, and it was just a blast. I'm not going to hurry it. I'm not going to gulp. I'm not going to bolt. I have plenty of other reading to do, but I'm going to keep Sacred Games going. And so I thought I would give you a little update on that because you all saw these books yesterday. Then we have the mail, which we can rifle through together. There's more mail coming today, I feel sure of it. But first we have a periodical, the New Yorker. This cover is called Food for Thought. And in it, every single character, the cat, the bird, the dogs, the people of all ages, they're all thinking about some kind of sustenance. Something that they might want, even if the little baby is thinking of a bosom, thinking of a nipple. One dog is thinking of a hot dog, one is thinking of a drumstick. The children want ice cream. It's kind of clever in its own way. Of course, as a dog partisan, I'm going to say that the dogs, the thought bubble for the dogs would be the face of their owner. But maybe not. I've had dogs in my life. My pointer, Malin, was a champion scarfer of stuff off the sidewalk. In her early years, it used to infuriate me because of how much she did it. She ate enough carrion and junk off the sidewalk every single day so that I technically didn't need to feed her. She ate several pounds of it off the sidewalk every day. Where I swear, I know it makes me sound like a bad owner, but I swear I would be looking at a blank, clean piece of concrete I would look away, and when I look back, she would be swallowing a whole chicken or something like that. I don't know where it came from. Frida doesn't have that instinct at all. Not at all. She will walk right up to a chicken bone or a biscuit or a piece of toast on the floor, on the ground, and ignore it completely unless I bring her attention to it. There's no interest in eating off the ground. It's just an individual thing. But the issue itself of the New Yorker was a little bit of a disappointment for me, only in the sense that it's a themed issue. It's all about food and drink. And in a sense, I love themed issues for the New Yorker because what they tend to do is bring out archival stuff. And this issue is full of archival stuff. And a lot of those pieces are very much fun to revisit. They even, for this issue, do archival comics. There's one, instant mashed potatoes, just add water. The caption is, all we can do now is sit tight and pray, because they're in the rain, they're worried the whole thing's going to explode with mashed potatoes. And that happens all throughout here. There are classic pieces. One, Terrence Rafferty's piece on the movie Big Night, which is an incredibly thoughtful movie discussion. There's a piece on Martha Stewart that I remember being really good. There's a piece on Anthony Bourdain that's really good. There's a reprint by MFK Fisher that is certainly very good, very enjoyable. It's her in a light mood. I know you're hearing a but in my voice, and the reason why is because I don't care about food. I just don't care about it. I don't care about the fine art of cooking it, or the fine art of appreciating it, and I largely don't care about reading about it. I mean, I know I'm not offending Tony Bourdain or Elizabeth David or MFK Fisher herself. There can be good writing on food. It's just for me it wears thin very quickly, and this issue did, unfortunately, wear thin very quickly. The main attraction that it had for me was nostalgia, remembering when I first read a lot of the pieces in here. But then we have books. 3 books, including one that was opened off camera. It's the new Anne Perry, A Darker Reality. This is an Elena Standish novel. Some of you won't know this character. Look at the box camera she's holding. So let me introduce you here. This is a fairly new series. I think there are only 2 or 3 books in this series. Yes, there were 2 more before this one. On her first trip to Washington, D.C., Elena Standish finally gets to visit her American mother's wealthy parents and their magnificent home. Elena's grandparents are marking a milestone anniversary by throwing an elaborate party with influential friends of her grandfather, a prominent political industrialist, in attendance. Even President and First Lady Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt are there, and Elena takes pride in capturing the illustrious guests with her camera. But the festivities come to a sudden and tragic end when one of the guests, Leela Worth, is run over by a car in the driveway just outside the mansion. Elena believes that Leela was trying to tell her something right before her death, and when a call from her employer back home, MI6, confirms that Leela was a British spy, Elena pairs with a fellow agent to find out what vital information the young woman may have had in her possession. It couldn't have been FDR that got hit by a car. No. Soon, an arrest is made in Leela's murder, and to Elena's horror, the accused is none other than her grandfather, who claims his political enemies are trying to frame him. But who are these enemies, and how can Elena defend this man she barely knows? Nevertheless, determined to clear his name and save her family from disgrace, she delves into the details of her grandfather's investments, discovering that his business secrets run deep. As her investigation continues, Elena wonders if she can trust anyone in this threatening new world order. I don't have oh wait, I do have a sheet for it. I do. This comes out, when does this come out? The end of September 21st. So those of you who know Anne Perry, who've been reading her for now 30 years, I have, will know she bolts together a great story, so you're not going to have to worry about this being a mystery that you don't like or that leaves anything egregious hanging. This won't be amateurish, in other words. And it fits rather well into your Mid-Year Mystery Madness category, yes? Mid-Year Mystery Madness is an ongoing booktube event in which we are dealing with subgenre September. I think it's 1 week in the 3rd week of September. We're dealing with subgenre September, but of course I want you to do these events all the time. A darker reality is historical mystery. Historical murder mysteries are a subgenre in which real-life historical characters either solve the crimes or are present in the narrative. And it doesn't really matter to the era. I firmly believe that historical fiction is anything older than 50 years from the present day. So this certainly counts. In fact, when is this story set? That description did not give us a date. 1934. This is the spring of 1934. So I'm going to go out on a limb. I haven't read this yet. I'll read it today. But I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that Elena's grandfather's finances have something to do with Nazi Germany. I could be wrong about that, but that seems the twist that would be most likely. And although Anne Perry is an extremely competent author, really good with plot, really good with progression of plot, really good with climax, these books don't tend to be really chock full of, knock me over with a feather surprises. So I could be right in my guess. I'm going to read it anyway. So there we have a murder mystery to start things off. And now we have 2 packages that we can actually open. There are these big cardboard things, and both of them have a little weight to them. So they could be finished copies. Let's see what we have here. Okay. All right, the first one is a finished copy. Unfortunately, it's a double. We've already seen this. This comes out in September, I think, right around the corner. This is the new Nathaniel Philbrick, Travels with George, where he and his wife and their dog go get in the car and retrace some of George Washington's steps during his triumphal progression at the very dawn of the American Republic. Trying to see the changes in the land, trying to see the similarities in the land. A lot of times in the book, they're looking at topography and realizing, if you can just white out the anachronisms, the road and the truck stop, the land here is just as Washington would have seen it. You go from that to things that Washington would find totally unrecognizable if it came forward today. And it manages to be really good travel writing and also really good little glimpses into the birth of America that day, or American history. And it's Nathaniel Philbrick, right? So just as is the case with Anne Perry, these are known authors. These are known quantities. So you're going to like a Nathaniel Philbrick novel. He doesn't write any books that you won't like, right? There's a handful of authors where if you like what they write, you never have to worry because they're never going to deviate. They've got the formula down pat. And Philbrick is a perfect example of that. And this is an extra copy. So we saw one of these already. If one of you wants a copy of this, if you're a bigger Nathaniel Philbrick fan than I am, then sing out. Let me know in the comments field or send me an email to the email listed on every video that I make. To that email. That is my inbox. That is my Gmail. If you see that, you hear me invite you to email me, and then you go online and look for some alternate email to send email address that you can maybe use, I'm going to ignore your email. My email address is on this video. If you want a copy of this thing, I think it comes out in September. I'd be happy to mail it to you. So anyway, that's a little anticlimactic though, because that was a double. So let's see what this last one is. We'll see if this is something brand new. Oh no, the pull tab has malfunctioned even before I could get my hands on it. What is this next one? Also a finished copy. What have we here? Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. I don't have a sheet for this, but oh my, very good. This is also a September release, I believe. This is by Fernando Cervantes, and this is Conquistadores, a new history of Spanish discovery and conquest, with a very, very nice cover. I don't often say that about American covers, but that is very nice. Not as nice, if memory serves, this is not nearly as nice as the UK cover. But this is going to be familiar territory. Let's see what we have here. Over the few short decades that followed Christopher Columbus's first landing in the Caribbean in 1492, Spain conquered the 2 most formidable civilizations of the Americas, the Aztecs of Mexico and the Incas of Peru. Hernan Cortez, Francisco Pizarro, and other explorers and soldiers that took part in these expeditions dedicated their lives to seeking political and religious glory, helping to build an empire unlike any the world had ever seen. But centuries later, these conquistadores have become the stuff of nightmares. In their own time, they were glorified as heroic adventurers spreading Christian culture. Today, they stand condemned for their cruelty and exploitation as men who decimated ancient civilizations and carried out horrific atrocities in pursuit of gold and glory. So this book is going to take them to task. In this book, acclaimed Mexican historian Fernando Cervantes, himself a descendant of one of the conquistadores, cuts through the layers of myth and fiction to help us better understand the context that gives rise to their actions. Drawing upon previously untapped primary sources that include diaries, letters, chronicles, and polemical treaties, Cervantes immerses us in the late medieval imperialist and religious world of 16th century Spain, and as unfamiliar to us now as the indigenous peoples of the New World were to the conquistadores themselves. The author's thought-provoking, illuminating account reframes the story of Spanish conquest of the New World and the half-century that irrevocably altered the course of the world. Okay, fantastic. There is our author. That is a face that has done a lot of laughing. That's always good. You know you're in good hands. Fantastic. Well, I'm a tiny bit conflicted here, not because I'm defending colonialism. The 21st century, you can't say that any colonized people ever got anything good out of their colonizing. But what we're talking about in the New World isn't so much colonizing as it is just genocide, just decimation. The stories are gruesome, and usually, if you haven't read up on them, worse than what you think. The only conflicted loyalty that I have in this case is that I have read up on these. One of my favorite historians ever wrote his whole life on this subject, enormously, and wrote at a time when the attitudes that Dust Jacket copy cites were true. When the conquistadors were seen as onward Christian soldiers, they were seen as Christian conquerors. They were seen as wiping out benighted, barbaric civilizations that ripped the hearts out of civilians on blood-soaked temples, that sort of thing. That predisposes me in two different ways. Not because I want to believe those myths. It's long since time that we discarded them. This particular chapter was horrific. But because I think it's almost a certainty that the writing in that earlier history is better than this. Almost a certainty. Just writing was better in the Edwardian era than it is now. That actually makes me wonder: is this translated? No translator listed. No. Okay. So this, although it has a dedication in Greek, very nice. So there you go. Some history. I'll have to find the date on this thing. I think it's coming right up. This is Conquistadores by Fernando Cervantes. Then we have Travels with George by Nathaniel Philbrick, and A Darker Reality by Anne Perry, the latest in her Elena Standish books. So that is color coordinated here, mail haul for today. It's raining. It's probably going to rain on and off for a while now. It's raining lightly. It's not all of the flood warnings that all of the networks have been issuing frantically for the last 10 hours are obviously fake. But it is gently raining. It's going to be a little bit of a battle of wills to get Frida outside in this kind of weather, but she's got to go. So I'm going to put away the mail and the magazines and go try and do that. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.